Hi, I'm Angie, Creative Memories Independent Advisor in Michigan, and today I'm going to share with you a mosaic layout that I had shared in my Facebook group, and I had a few people asking how I created it. And I'll switch it over in a minute. But I just want to preface that this layout is a little bit more difficult, and it's also a little bit more like ebb and flow and work with your pictures. It's not a black and white cut it 6 inches, put it at 1 inch. It's very much just kind of going with the flow. But I'll show you the technique that I used to make the layout. There are probably other ways that you could do this, but this is the flow that I got into creating the layout. So I'll switch you over my desktop real quick. Okay, so these are the 2 pages that I originally created. This border detail is something that Noreen Smith had shared on how to do. She called it crazy squares. It is a fairly simple technique. I did not plan ahead to show you how to do this. Um, what we're going to be working on is just taking some photos and working with them to cut them on some angles and basically leaving a little bit of a gap in between them for a like grout line, so to speak. So there's a gap between them. When you're picking your paper that you want to use for your background paper, I would suggest sticking with a cardstock as opposed to a tonal page. Um, I mean, you can see what a tonal page will work with, but any patterns or anything might make it busier than it already is with a lot of pictures. So I would stick with a tonal. And depending on your pictures, if your pictures are a lot darker, use a lighter tone. If your pictures are lighter, use a darker tone. Most of my pictures were fairly medium to a bright day, so I did go with the dark, the hot fudge brown dark tone. So this is kind of the goal. These are the 2 pages that I already created. And I've already started by kind of mapping out some photos. And I will say for this event, I already had another page that I did for this. So there'll be a total of 4 pages. And I do have like more pictures that I could sort through. So that is one of the first key things is you're going to need something with a lot of pictures, and you're going to need pictures that you're able to have space around them, and you can kind of work with um, moving them around a little bit. Um, Also, you're going to want both horizontal and vertical. If you think of a 12-inch sheet of paper, if you laid out three verticals and you had 4 inches next to each other, so say you've got one piece of paper and you laid out only 3 pieces of paper trying to do this technique, you wouldn't be able to cut them on an angle and have them merge together. So you would need at least a fourth one. Again, that you have room to be able to trim them down, or you're going to want one of them to be horizontal. And again, having um, space, extra white space in the photos to be able to trim them down. So plan for extra inches when you are first laying out some of your photos. Okay, so now when it comes time to start working with your photos, I like to start in the corners, and I'm going to pull this down and maybe pull my camera down just a little bit more. I like to start mostly in the corners, and then use the other ones in between, and we'll kind of see how that works as we go. Um, I'm going to look at my photos, especially the ones that I don't want to cut as much off of. So let's see in my in some of the, in this layout, like this photo is for the most part a full 4 by 6 inches across. This photo here, I had some room to trim at the top, but I did not want to trim. This bottom here is a full 4 inches or just shy of it, and I had to be careful not to cut this little dude's head off. So I want to kind of start with those ones, the ones that I might not have as much leeway and give for trimming. So this one I have quite a bit, and I only have a little bit of space to cut. I have some space at the top to trim off. I'm going to save trimming off the edges for the end, and we'll kind of work through that. So I'm going to just move these pictures a little bit. I'm not going to take them all off, but I'm just going to kind of move them out of the way a little bit. Aside from your background paper and lots of photos, what we're going to use for this project are, I have my array of tools. So we've got our photo trimmer. I've got some wet wipes. You can use a photo cloth, but I like wet wipes. They're easy enough to work with. Repositional for the beginning. Regular tape adhesive to get the photos done and stuck down when we're completely liking what we want. Scissors to trim at the end. And then you're going to want a straight edge and your photo pencil. So let's pull this back over and get started. So we are going to work with this photo at first. And again, I'm not going to worry about the top here, but I do know that I have a little extra space that I can work with. I'm going to have my photos go to the edges because I'm going to trim them off. So I want them to go flush. So for this one's going to go flush along this edge. I'm going to have some extra photo off the page here. And again, I might move that as we're working. I need to basically cut some small diagonals on here. And for this photo, for the most part, I don't want to cut off his legs anymore, so I'm going to go a little bit this way. I don't want to cut too much of the feet here, so just a little bit of an angle. And over here, I might go this way because I'm going to kind of follow the line of her in this image. So it's always kind of a question of where do you want to cut more off of. So I'm just going to cut just a little bit off of that one. And then this side I wanted to go, which way? I'm turning it upside down. I want to go this way. All right, and I'm going to just take my repositional tape and tack that down. And I'm going to, again, have a little extra hanging off on this side, but this side's going to go flush to my cardstock. And just tack that down. Now, I'm going to wait for this one, and I'm going to put this one down. Let's kind of imagine that a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of cut a chunk of this off. Again, I have lots of extra space. I can move this up. I can move this out. For the most part, I'm going to kind of go, let's see. I'm going to scooch it up a little bit. And we'll kind of go from there. Now, for this photo in between, I'm getting kind of a glare on the light there. For this photo in between, I don't want to cut her head off. I could cut some of the ladder off down here. I want to keep it, for the most part, as full as I can, but let's focus on these angles that we created here. We're going to take our straight edge, and I do have some photos going off, so I don't want to cut off her head. So this is about as high. I could move it up a little bit higher, but that's where I want to kind of start with. And I kind of want to center her. So I'm going to take my straight edge and I'm going to line it up with the edge of the photo and follow the lines that I just created. and take my pencil and just draw a line down. And same thing with this other photo. Line it up with the edge and draw a line down. And when I draw with my pencil, it does not go right up against the edge of the ruler. There is a little bit of a gap. So for the most part, when I go to trim these, I will trim to the inside of these lines, and that'll give me a good idea of my spacing. Sometimes I have to go back and trim some more, and I'm sure I'll have to do that on this layout. So I'm sure I will show you what I mean by that. But this gives us a good start. So I'm going to tack this down, and we're just going to kind of keep going because I have room to cut off the top and cut off the bottom. I have room to move this up or down on the page, and I could trim a little bit more off each side to get my spacing just a little bit thicker. You can see it a little bit, but I want it to be just a smidge thicker, but I'm going to hold off on that for right now. Let's go with, I'm going to work with this photo down here in this corner now. Kind of do the same things as I did up in these corners. I am just going to, I'm going to follow kind of this beam line here and trim a little bit off of that one. And this side, doesn't really matter which way I make the angle go. Sometimes I'm watching for the people that I'm cutting next to. I'm not seeing too much of an example of kind of following the people. Like this one I kind of went this way and kind of follow them a little bit more. This one especially I went this way, so I was wider here, narrow there. So sometimes you're just following the lines of the pictures, sometimes you're just kind of cutting a random angled cut. So we're just going to tack this down, and again I've got he's pretty close to the edge here, but I've got a little space down here, so I'm going to put a little bit of it off. And then we'll work with this one. So I'm going to tuck it in between, tuck it behind that one, and that actually looks pretty good. I am going to grab my straight edge and just follow the lines of the pictures that I've already cut. And I do like to draw my line pretty thick. That's what the wet wipes are for, to clean them up when we're done. I did start out by doing just light lines, and then I was having to like go back and see where they were supposed to be. So I do kind of go ahead and draw them a little bit thicker now. All right, let's see how that one worked. Pretty good. Let's tack that down. And again, I can clean up some of these. Again, I want them maybe just a little bit thicker, so I can clean that up in a minute. Just trying to get it for the most part mapped out first, and then I can be a little bit more finicky as I need to. Now I am going to go to this corner next. And I really just thought this picture was pretty cool with all the different squares and layers, and it just very looks angular. So even though the dude is pretty small in the photo, I want to kind of keep, for the most part, the square. And I am going to follow this line, cut that way. And this one's for the most part straight up and down, so I can just kind of cut it at an angle. I'm gonna shimmy this off the page, and I'll probably butt it up against their edge. I can move it over if I need to. Um, when it comes time for this picture, I will move that over as I need to, and I might trim this down a little bit more. So let's start with this and just kind of establishing an angle first and tacking that down. And this one's going to go in between, but I knew I had kind of plenty of give to move that up and down. So let's work on this one. And yeah, I'm going to trim a little bit more of this off. And I might move that over a bit. Trim this a smidge. And trim this one down a little bit more. All right, so now we will draw our lines. I'm going to line this up at the bottom, but as I fill my pictures in the center, I can move this down if need be. I don't want to cut off so much of their legs, but I can cut, but I'm not going to cut it yet. So let's draw our lines. I'll line up my background page as much as I can on the map, so I can kind of get an idea of how much I'm cutting off. Okay. Get some of that out of the way. All right, and we'll put this one down temporarily. And I can tell that my gaps here are not quite, like it's a little bit, my big gap is a little bit bigger here than there, so I do need to trim a little bit of that. So when I need to do that, so I don't need to trim any off the bottom here, but I need to take a little bit smidge off. So I'm just going to kind of line that up for where I need to take a little bit off. And unfortunately, if you're taking, sometimes it kind of strips your photo. So again, handy dandy scissors, clean that up. Okay. There, that helps a little bit. And again, I can trim some of that off. I'm gonna wait. Let's work on this photo and figure out how much we're gonna cut off. I'm gonna lop off some of this first. Okay. Let's line her up. And now with this, I could just follow this line up, following kind of this photo to trim that. Don't mind if you're seeing a little bit of the top of my head as I'm leaning over to see here in my camera. All right. So we will trim this one. Okay. See how that one fits in. Pretty good. Again, I can kind of shimmy the photos to make the gaps a little bit bigger, but for right now, we will tack that down. Okay. Now, honestly, these are the hardest ones. Is getting these last ones to kind of work and fit. So this one I have a taller photo-ish. He's kind of, it's taller. And there. I can put this one here, maybe. And shift this down a bit. I can also look and see if I have any other photos that might work a little bit better. I'm starting to get to the point where most of the photos I have left are kind of duplicates of ones that I have already used or just very similar to some of them I've already used. All right, let's go with the ones we've got. So let's work with this one, and I'm going to, again, just kind of lop some of it off as I'm tucking this one, because I know I'm going to be trimming some of this off. So I could put that one kind of there. Or I can kind of see what it looks like. Oh, I kind of like that, so that the broom that he's using can go there. I could trim some of this off. Don't know how that's, this one's, I can move this one over and cut off a little bit of the arm here. That's fine. And I can kind of do the same thing on the other side. And again, as long as I'm kind of following the angles, it's okay. And now I'm just kind of following the cardstock to see how, I'm just cutting off a little bit of her hand. No big deal. So I can shimmy him over a bit. I can cut off some of this one. And then I could probably fit that one in there. Okay, so let's go with that. I'm going to cut off some of the top of this photo first. And again, do it a little bit of an angle. Nothing major. Fit that back in there. I've got a little bit where the photo didn't look good. So now you're really working at like kind of piecing the puzzles together. Oh, now I do end up with a gap here though, between those photos. I can't really do that because I didn't have any more on this side. Okay, so I need to move that back over because I don't want a gap in the middle there. Okay. So let's, and I am going to end up making like a weird little cut here. I did that on another page, on a page where I didn't cover up people's faces, so I'm not going to show that. So it's not too bad to do that though. Let's see, where did I set the straight edge? Right here. So let's work on trimming this guy down. I am just going to follow all the lines of the photos around it. And I'm going to leave that. I might, depending on how the other photo goes, that might get trimmed down. I do find the handy dandy photo trimmer to be very helpful in doing this. For this one, I'm just going to use my scissors and follow the lines. And we'll see how that guy fits right in there. Fits pretty good, except for down here needs a little bit more trimmed off. Okay, we're going to tack that in for just right now. I've got to do some cleaning up in terms of my spacing. Like this one I can see is a little bit off, but it's okay for right now. Okay, so this one is, for the most part, going to get tucked in behind everything. I'm tucked in behind this one. Okay, so I don't want to cut the people off, but I have a lot of room up and down. That's why I was kind of looking to see if I had a little bit more of a vertical photo. I could actually, maybe I'll try this photo instead. Let me cover up. So this is one of the helpers in the DR. Maybe I could put this one in instead. Let's take that off for a second. If I trim this down a little bit, kind of getting close to him not fitting in there. It is a little bit bigger. I can move this one up. Oh, I just trimmed that one down. I can move those up a little bit. So I'm not cutting off so much of his head. This is honestly the hardest part, is just puzzling them all together. I can trim that one down a little bit. And I will say, out of the 4 pages so far that I've done, this one is the most difficult. Try to move them up a little bit. I think that's okay. Let's see if I have any other ones that'll fit a little bit better or nicer. I think at this point it is what it is. Okay, we're going to work with this. Okay, before I trim this one down, I'm going to take the time and clean up some of the other lines, I think. No, I'll save that for the end. All right, let's see. I want to move him up a bit. Trying to debate if I want to trim. I could trim down this one a little bit more. Trim off her arm some more so I can actually see what he's doing here. We'll end up doing that. I'm going to trim this to the edge of the brush. So I can kind of see how far over I can bring him. This will cut off more of her arm. And we'll just kind of take the edge of that photo as that side there. I'm just not wanting to cut down his head here so much. A little bit more. All right, we're gonna go with it. And I'm gonna have some weird random angles for this one, but I kind of knew that I was gonna run into that with working with a handful of photos. We're just gonna go with it. So I do like that I'm using the hot fudge for my background because if my pencil has gone off my photos at all, you can't tell. I would be more cautious if I was using white or something else. Okay, let's trim this down. Again, it's really kind of weird. I've got some weird angles. It's honestly just the way it goes. Again, as you're ebbing and flowing and working with the photos, they're not going to be super easy. Like I feel like I got this one, I ended up having to do just a tiny little filler picture. Otherwise I would have had to do one of these little weird angles on that one too. It's okay. We're embracing the mosaic-ness of it all. All right, so this is going to go in here. That's going to go there. Okay, so for the most part, I have all the pictures. We need to clean off the lines that we've drawn, and also work with trimming our spaces. This one we were moving down a little bit. So I'm just going to start here. I didn't draw anything on here. I don't have any lines to clean up. I am going to, where's my tape runner? I am going to, for the most part, leave it there. I'm going to just take my tape runner and adhere it down. So that one's stuck. It's not going anywhere. Now we're going to look at this one. And I'm okay with the lines. I need to clean this one off. And again, I just use baby wipes. You can use a polishing cloth. This is easy enough to get the black pencil off, and then I can wipe it right off my desktop. If my photo is a little damp, honestly, I just wipe it on my pants, dry it off so I can put it down. I am just making sure my gapping here is easy. Even this one, I might have to trim the gapping a little bit. I'm going to adhere this one down. And I kind of butted it up against this one. I'm going to, I don't need to clean this one. I'm going to shift this one over because I can cut. Actually, no, I don't want to cut more off of that side. But I do need to trim this just a smidge. So at this point, I'm just kind of eyeballing how much needs to be trimmed off to make my gappings. My gappings. This is very technical terms here today. My gappings. A little bit more consistent. Okay. That photo I'm going to need to clean up. This one needs a smidge off the bottom. Smidge more, I should say. I already trimmed a little bit. And I do need to clean up my pencil lines. See how that is. I need to trim a little bit off this side and a little bit more that way. So, like I said, this layout is a little bit more tedious than some others, but honestly, the end result is pretty cool, if I do say so myself. All right. Let's I feel like that one's going to be needing to trim a little bit. Okay, put that one down. Let's put this one down. I don't need to trim anything. I am going to have to kind of move this one. Okay, this one's spacing I need to adjust. I need to trim it a little bit off of this side. And I need to clean off my pencil lines. Okay. All right, let's check that one. Pretty good. That photo is going to need to be moved over a smidge. Okay. Let's go up to this corner photo, which I said needs to be moved over, but I think I'm actually going to cut a little bit off of that side. Perfect. Oh, maybe go up a little bit more. I might have to trim a little bit off of that one. Okay, let's get this one down and then we can work again with these center pieces. So that is pretty good. Need to clean it. All right, let's make sure I have this on the page yet off the page enough. good. Okay. All right, so let's work with these last two centerpieces that for one, I need to clean the lines off of. And then we will just tediously make sure they are spaced out. My angles are good on them. Okay. So for this one with lots of weird angles, I need to trim a little bit off up there. And honestly, I think that's about as good. I could trim a little bit here and fix that angle. But I'm going to trim off a smidge off that top line first. That's the biggest problem. See if that was enough. I like to trim less when I get to this point. Trim a little bit more. I like to trim less because I can't put photo back together. Okay. Okay, and again, I can trim, make that one go in just a smidge more. All right, let's put this down. Okay, and the last photo that I did clean, I need to come in a little bit here. So this part needs to be brought in a little bit. Don't really have a gap there. Okay, oops, I had a piece, there we go. So that's a little better. I need to trim this a little bit more and that one. And again, I could be done with some of these. I'm really nitpicking at this point, making my lines even all the way around my photos. I'm going to do that one a little bit more. Okay, and we're going to put it down. I'm putting the permanent photo adhesive on it and calling it good. I'm not going to mess with it anymore. Okay, so now that we have all of our photos down, right? We have all of them down. Yes, yay! We are going to trim all of the edges. And again, we made sure that the photos were flush to the edges so that we could just trim these other ones. You can use your 12-inch trimmer to trim these off if you want to. Personally, I just like using scissors when I do this. I feel like when I try to use my 12-inch trimmer for this, I either get too far away or I end up going like too close and then I start cutting the cardstock. So I just find scissors to be easier to just cut along the edge of the cardstock, but you can do whatever is more convenient for you. Okay. This one I'm gonna put a little more tape adhesive. That was flopping around a little bit. So for this one, I'm going to basically just cut straight off. Instead of trying to turn that corner, it's easier just to do that. Last photo. There we go. And this one I could trim just a little bit more off. Honestly, once it's in the page protector, you're probably not going to tell. But there. There we go. There is our last page, last of 4 pages of this event, as well as the last of 4 pages of this mosaic style that I'm probably going to do in this album. I might do it again in the future. It is really quite convenient to get a lot of pictures on a page. So this one I have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I got 10 photos on the page, and some of them are still quite larger. This one I don't think I have quite as many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a tiny little smidgen one. This one I have 7. So, I mean, you do get quite a few pictures on the page. So I have this one as a 2-page layout. And then this is the second page of another one, but I didn't cover up faces in the other picture. So, all right. So that is how the best way I found to do this when I was doing my very first, here, I'll switch it over. When I was doing the very first page of trying to get this technique going, this mosaic look, I was trying to map it out more, and honestly, that just wasn't working. I found that kind of working with one photo, cutting the angle, and then following that line for the next photo was the easiest way for me to do this. I'm sure, again, there's probably other techniques to do this layout. This is just what worked for me. I would recommend, if you want to try this, maybe don't use your final photos. Grab a stack of those reject photos from other layouts that you've already done and play around with it. Grab some scrap paper, grab the white pages from the inserts of the pocket pages, grab some scrap photos, and just play around with it a little bit. See if it's something you like. See how it goes first before you start cutting up your good photos. But if you give this a try, post it in my Facebook group. I will link my Facebook group down below this video on my YouTube channel. Otherwise, I will also post this video in my Facebook group, so you guys can, if you guys give this a try, post your layouts in the comments below. Other than that, happy scrapping.